We've travelled across the globe alongside Nathan Drake to find countless treasures. We've seen into his past and we've seen him develop as a character, but it's now finally time we say goodbye as we reach the end of his journey. Hey everyone, my name's Kane, and on occasion I play games, and today we're finally taking a look at Uncharted 4: A Thief's End from 2016. Well, that's not actually true, as in line with the rest of the series, we're actually looking at the remastered version of Uncharted 4, released via the Legacy of Thieves Collection earlier this year, and we're playing this game on PS5. I'm actually really excited to get into this game. I thoroughly enjoyed Uncharted 3: Drake's Deception, which you can watch by clicking the eye up in the corner. But on top of that, there's a gap of 5 years between that game and this one, and the PS4 had come out between these games, so I'm fascinated to see what Naughty Dog brought to this one with all this new technology. As always, if you enjoy what you see today, I want to ask you to consider liking this video and subscribing for future videos just like this one, but until then, why not sit back and enjoy as I ask Uncharted 4: A Thief's End, how bad can it be? Right out of the gate, I just want to say, God, this game is pretty. I can't comment on how much the remaster improved the way it looked, as I never played the original Uncharted 4, so I have no point of reference, but man is this remaster beautiful. I couldn't get over how good Uncharted 4 looked while I was playing. I thought the other games looked impressive, and they do, but playing these back to back and seeing the sheer difference that 5-year gap and generational leap made blew my mind. Uncharted 2 felt like a movie. All the locales were very impressive and the way it was shot had a very cinematic feel, but Uncharted 4 is a movie. It takes that attempt at a cinematic experience that Among Thieves makes and cranks it up to an 11, all without losing its sense of charm and uniqueness. It's so impressive. It's honestly a shame that the photo mode in Uncharted 4 isn't that great. It's pretty poorly designed UI-wise. It has the basic features you need and it does the job, but it's difficult to properly navigate and use. It's quite limited. It's not the worst photo mode I've ever seen, but it is a far cry from the best one I've ever used, and honestly that is a damn shame because I wanted to take a picture of literally everything I came across while playing. A Thief's End also tells my favourite story of the series so far, putting the attention of the narrative almost exclusively on the characters and their relationships instead of the treasure that we happen to be hunting. This is a genius idea. Back in my first video covering the Uncharted series, which you can watch by checking out the eye in the corner, I mentioned that the real reason to play it was its strong narrative and character writing. That's what Naughty Dog does best in this series. They make characters you want to spend more time with. They feel realized and like actual people, they have flaws and motivations, and nowhere is that more the case than Uncharted 4. Even Sam Drake, a character who in any other media product would be a giant red flag, gets a pass because of how well written and performed the character is. You soon forget that this very major character, who was never even mentioned or hinted towards in prior games, just shows up because the relationship between Sam and Nate is believable and delivered in a way that makes Sam feel like he was always there, and it's that kind of dedication to good storytelling and writing that really separates A Thief's End from the others to me. No character is left behind in Uncharted 4. They're all treated as important, and the story feels more important because of it. The best of these relationships though has to be the one between Nate and Elena. Built across 4 separate games at this point, Nate and Elena feel like real people, and this relationship, alongside the one with Sam, is the main driving force of Nate as a character in A Thief's End. It kept me hooked the entire playthrough. I was so invested in seeing how the story played out and where Nate and Elena ended up, and I loved every second of it. These relationships weren't the only strong hooks in the game either. I think the unfolding story of Libertalia and Henry Avery was very engaging in its own right, keeping me on my toes and guessing on where it could go next, while playing second fiddle to the main story unfolding. I also think that the 2 primary antagonists of Uncharted 4 in Rafe and Nadine are the best in the entire franchise, but that's not really saying much because there isn't a whole lot of competition there, let's be honest. While it was a little odd hearing Laura Bailey's voice coming from Nadine, I thought the character was the perfect second in command that's more badass than the main antagonist. Me and my Twitch chat were low-key rooting for Nadine in a way. We actually wanted her to do well. Then we have Rafe, who is by far the best antagonist in the series because he really isn't one. He's just a guy who really wants what we also happen to want, and that's such a breath of fresh air. It's so nice to have a bad guy in a game just be that, a bad guy. Not some kind of overt British stereotype, not an Eastern European warlord, just a man who's a bit of a jerk and really wants a thing. Less is more. Simple, but not generic. And that's honestly how I describe Uncharted 4 in terms of its gameplay as well. It's like Naughty Dog took the game back to its core elements and focused a lot on making them better. The puzzles aren't overly complex, but they are varied and interesting. Some of them require more thought, while others are more about the game's climbing and parkour mechanics, and this does allow the puzzle element of Uncharted to remain fresh for longer, which is a necessity in the longer game that Uncharted 4 is when compared to the prior entries of the franchise. While we're touching upon the climbing and parkour, I think that Uncharted 4 made some massive improvements, namely in the grappling hook and piton, both of which really freshened up the experience that was getting a little stale after 3 entries. The core mechanics, meanwhile, are the smoothest they've ever been, with the actual climbing feeling very fluid. They even brought back and improved upon the very fun chase sequences from Uncharted 3, just to better flex how good it really feels to play as Nathan Drake. So, because you know I have to mention it, the combat in Uncharted 4 is leagues better than the rest of the franchise, including Uncharted 3, which was way better than the previous 2. I didn't get frustrated with the combat a single time in my entire playthrough of Uncharted 4. The actual gunplay was better, the sequences were way more fun. You got to have a shootout in a ship graveyard, and that's just cool. You got to have a full-blown fist fight against Nadine that also required you to grapple and climb around, and that's just cool. You got to drive a truck through a town while a bigger armored truck tried to shoot you down with its mounted cannon, before quickly transitioning into an enhanced version of the amazing convoy hopping sequences from Uncharted 2 and 3, and that's just cool. Not a single moment outstayed its welcome in the entirety of Uncharted 4. It was a blast from start to finish. Well, almost. While Uncharted 4 did do some vast improvements to the formula of the franchise by taking the time to look at what made these games so good, it was inevitable that something less than stellar would slip through the cracks, and in the case of Uncharted 4, it's an annoying final boss. Now, Uncharted 4 still has the best final boss out of the series by far. The sword fight with Wraith is an interesting end to the game, the setting is amazing, the actual idea of ending in a sword fight is so beautifully cheesy and pirate themed, it's not really BS or boring either, it's just that the controls are pretty bad. Having the left and right dodge be assigned to triangle and circle instead of the far more natural feeling L1 and R1 made very little sense to me personally, and gave the fight more of a stunted feel. It was a bit of a sour note to end the game on. Though 10 minutes of meh does not spoil the 15 hours of sheer excellence that Uncharted 4 provides, it's a game that doesn't just aim for a cinematic experience, but one that achieves that more than any of the other games could, with flying colours. It's the cinematic experience that Uncharted 2 wanted to be, but with the sheer charm that makes these games so good at their best. Honestly, if you're getting into PlayStation right now, such as myself, I highly recommend you check out the Uncharted franchise, especially Uncharted 4, because it is a brilliant game, and the story that they tell, specifically the one between Nate and Elena, is fantastic, and you need to check that out. Thanks for watching this video on Uncharted 4: A Thief's End. If you enjoy what you saw, remember to hit that like button and consider subscribing for future videos just like this one. But if you want something right now, why not click one of the things that have appeared on screen? They'll take you to some more of my content. Thanks again, guys. I've been Kane, and I'll see you all soon.